said, these notes are covering combining transformations. So they may be asking you to do 2 or more transformations to the same figure. So on this first one, it says that we're going to draw the image of triangle ABC after given the combination of transformations. The combination of transformations are to reflect over line L and then translate along vector B. It's important that we do them in the order that is listed, okay? So, first thing is, if I am reflecting across some line L, then I need to remember that I am trying to flip them, right? If I'm reflecting across some diagonal line, I want an exact mirror image of this right above it, all right? Okay, so that's what I'm going to do first. I'm just going to reflect this triangle across this line. Well, point A is on the line, so when I reflect it, is it going anywhere? No. Okay, so point A is going to stay right here. A prime and A are the same point. Okay, all right, then my point B. So from A, I had to go over 1 and down 2 to get to B, right? I'm going to want to do the same thing, but the opposite up above, right? Yeah, we need it to be slanting like this direction, right? So that whenever I would fold it, it would match up. So it's got to be, the figure is going to be like on a line here, so that when it folds in half, it matches, right? So, right in here should be my E prime. Okay, so that it matches the line below it. All right, and then for my C prime, same idea. I just need to figure out how many over and down we had to get there. And then I'm going to do the opposite up above, right? So I would have 3 and 1. Okay. And if you look below here, they already did that for us. So you can check and make sure your image matches the one we just drew right here. Okay. So A prime was still on the line. And then from A, we went up 2 and over 1 to get to B prime, up 3 and over 1 to get to C prime. Okay. What's important here is that if I folded this in half, these two ends would match up, these two sides would match up, and our long side would match up as well. Okay. Okay. So reflection, not too bad because you just basically mirror it, make it look the same. Okay. Then it says we need to translate it by vector v. So they drew vector v on the graph so that you could count how many over, whether that's left and right, and then how much up and down. So which direction are we moving? Okay, how many? 4. And then up 1. So I just want to change all of my points by this much. Right? So if I was drawing on this same coordinate grid, I could literally just look at my point A and count right 4 places and up 1. And that should be my A prime. Same from my B. 1, 2, 3, 4, and up 1 would be my B prime. And then for C, or sorry, double prime, because we already have our primes. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, up 1 for my C double prime. So we had to make the transformation in the order that they told us, so that's why we went from here to here, right? We aren't going back to the original. We're one after another completing these transformations, which they already drew over here for us, so you can double check and make sure you got everything in the right spot. Okay? All right, so that one wasn't too bad. It only asked us to make 2 changes. This next one says 180-degree rotation about point P, then a translation along vector V, then a reflection across the line L. So we're going to have to make 3 changes this time. Okay, so if you notice, this coordinate grid does not have some y-axis written on there. That doesn't matter this time because our rotation is around point P, right? So you treat point P kind of like your origin. Everything happens around point P. So everything is being counted as how far is it away from point P. Yes.
Can you make like P?
Yes. Yeah. So this is kind of like your x-axis, right? And then vertically, point P would be kind of like your y. Okay, so the first thing that I want us to do is just write down where the points are currently at in relation to point P. Okay, so starting with A, how many right do I have to move and how many down do I have to move to get to point A? Right, 1. Okay, so A is starting at basically 1, -2 in relation to point P. Okay? What about point B? Good. And C? Okay. All right, so when we make changes, these are the changes we're going to make that 180-degree rotation to. Okay. It didn't matter which direction we're rotating if we're rotating 180 degrees because that's halfway, either way, right? Okay, so whenever we rotate, what happens to our coordinate points? The signs flip. Very good. So all I need to do is for those original points, A, B, and C, when I'm making my A prime, B prime, and C prime, is change their signs. So 1, -2 is going to become -1, 2. Good. All right, and -1, -3, and -1, 0. Good. Okay, and this is all in relation to point P, right? So when I come and graph them, that's what I need to remember. I'm starting at P going -1, 2. Okay, so there's my A prime. All right, and then for B prime, I go over 1 and up 3. And then for C prime, over 1, up none. Okay, so this is the figure after it's been rotated 180 degrees around point P. Okay. All right, now we're going to find our A double prime, B double prime, and C double prime. And the changes are happening from these points, right? Because it's one reflection after another. Okay, so the next thing that they said we need to do is translate along vector V. Okay, so if I look over here at the vector V they drew, what changes that? Good. All right. 5 to the right and up 1. Right, if you count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up 1. Right, that's how we treat a vector, right? And it depends on the direction. This one was going to the right, so it is a positive 5. It was going up, so it's a positive 1. Okay, so basically, that's the change I'm making to all these coordinate points, right? Okay, so -1, if I move 5 to the right, is going to be at 4. And 2, if I move 1 up, will be at, good. Okay, 1, if I move 5 right, will be at, and 3, if I move 1 up, will be at, okay, and then what is my C double prime going to be? 6, 1. Okay, and you can either come over here and actually count that point from P, or you could just go to these and count the 5 over up 1 for each one. So here's my B double prime, A double prime, and C double prime. and then last transformation to find our triple prime. All right, so this one says we are reflecting across line L. Well, line L is like our what axis? Our x-axis. And what happens to our coordinate point when we reflect across the x-axis? The y sign flips. Good. So we go from whatever our coordinate point was to changing just the sign of y. Okay, so it's on these points right here, right? So 4, 3 is going to become, good, and 6, 4 will become, good, and what's C going to become? Okay. All right, which really is these exact same points just mirrored down, right? So here's my C triple prime, my B triple prime, and my A triple prime. Okay? All right. Okay, on to the next page. They then ask us a few questions about what we just did here on the front page. Okay? It says that they first want to know, are the images that we drew for each example the same size and shape as the given pre-image?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. In what ways do congruence transformations change the pre-image? So what did change?
The location.
The location. What else? The way it's facing, which we call the, good. Okay. All right. Number 5 says in part B, so that second problem we were just looking at, in part B, describe the sequence of transformations that can take your triangle A double prime, B double prime, C double prime back to the pre-image.
Step by step.
Okay, yeah, we got to give a step by step. So if I'm at the double primes, what did we do to get to the double primes? Translation of what? Okay, and what was the vector? 5, 1. So if I want to undo that, I would have to go, good. Okay, so there's our step 1. So you'd have to change about the vector -5, -1. Okay, and that would put us back at our first transformation. And what was that first transformation? Of how many degrees? So to put it back to the beginning, we would have to rotate how many more? Let's rotate. Okay. All right. Okay, on these next ones, it says draw the image of the triangle after the given combination of transformations. Okay, so on number 6, it says we're going to reflect across the line L and then rotate 90 degrees around point P. Okay, so first we're going to reflect. So it should be a mirror image, right, when I fold it on line L, which means these points would be my B prime and C prime, and over here should be A prime. Okay? Okay? All right, then we are going to rotate 90 degrees around point P. Okay, so point P is acting like our origin. Okay, so whenever we rotate 90 degrees, this is equivalent to just coming down. Like if this is acting like my origin, that would be equivalent from going from quadrant 1 to quadrant 4, right? This is quadrant 4 if we go clockwise, right? Okay, so in that quadrant, what do we already know what the coordinate points? Yes, our y's need to be negative. Yes, is what he's getting at here. But whenever we rotate, what do we also do to the coordinates? When it's 90 or 270, flip their spots, right? So we're going to have to start with wherever we currently are, and we're going to flip their spots and change the sign of y. Which would make sense, right? Because up here, where we currently are, our y's are all positive. We're coming down here, we would need negative, right? Okay, so, or sorry, if we're going over, oh, maybe they want us to go counterclockwise so that we can fit it in the grid, right? Because if we go to quadrant 4, it's not even going to be in the picture. Okay, I'm adding that part in. We're going to go counterclockwise.
Negative.
Yes, if it wants it over here, yes, because then the x's would have to be negative. Okay. All right. But whenever you come over here, this is now your y value, right? So we still had it right. Like whenever you flip it, that's the part that you want to be negative is your x to put it in this quadrant. Okay. In this quadrant, we want the x value to be negative, the y value to be positive, right? Okay. So this is like your x, this is like your y now.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the negative sign's just staying in the same place while the y next switch.
No. You're like whatever is currently here, you change its sign and then move it.
So then why would the x?
Why would it 90 degrees?
Because if I'm in this quadrant right here, this is where x values are negative and y values are positive. This is the x and this is the y. So we want this one to be negative and we want the other one to be positive.
So would
We are swapping
90
them.
degrees clockwise be y negative x?
Would 90 degrees clockwise be y negative? Yes, because we would want the y value to be negative if we were in this quadrant. Okay. All right, so again, we're rotating about point P. So our coordinate points are based on how far away we are from P, right? Okay, so for our point B, how far away are we from point P?
Up 4, right 3.
Okay, so as a coordinate point, that would be 3, 4, right? So that's where B currently is. Okay, all right, and then where is C currently in relation to P? 1, 2, 3, up 1. So 3, 1. And then A prime is currently 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1 in relation to point P. Okay, all right. So if we go counterclockwise, that's going to put us over here in this quadrant, right? Okay, so what I'm going to do to come up with my B double prime is change the sign of y, which currently is the number 4. So if it's 4 and I change its sign, it's going to become negative 4. And then negative 4 and 3 are going to switch. So the coordinate point would be negative 4, 3, which would be in this quadrant, right? Negative x, positive y. So that puts it over here. okay, in relation to P. So negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3 would be my B double prime. All right, for C, I look at my Y. My Y currently is 1, so I change its sign to, and then switch their spots. So I would have, good. So in relation to point P, negative 1 up 1, 2, oops, 1, 2, 3 would be my C double prime. All right, and then for A, my Y value is currently 1, so I change it to a negative and flip their places. So negative 1 up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I miscounted on this one, I think. Negative 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I think I miscounted here too. So negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. No. Okay, I missed something. No. We're right. Because we're reflecting the image too. Okay, so this one would have been our C, and this is our A double prime. Okay, which makes sense because if it was here and we rotated it, we turn it on its side, right? Okay. All right, number 7, translation along vector U, then translation along vector V, then 180-degree rotation around our point. Okay, so if I'm translating vector U first, what kind of a change is vector U telling us to make?
Over negative 3, 0.
Good. Okay, which is easy enough, right? I would just count that for each point. So just left 3 places. So there's my E, G would actually end up 1 off, right? And then F would end up right here. Okay, so this is my E prime, the first change. Okay. All right, and then we're going to translate on vector V. What is the change vector V is saying we should be making? Right 2 up 1, right? So 2, 1, which means I'm starting at these new points we just made and moving them over 2, so back in the direction they came from, and up 1. So if this was my E, over 2, up 1. So here is my E double prime. G would be right here. Oops. G double prime. And then F, this would be F double prime. Okay, so here's our triangle. And then we're going to rotate this about point P. Okay, so if it's going about point P, first of all, when we rotate around 180 degrees, what's going to change about our coordinate point? The signs. So we got our x, y, and we're just going to change the signs of both. But I just need to figure out where they are in relation to point P. All right, so to get from P to F double prime, I go left how many and up how many? Okay, so that would be negative 2, 1. All right. Okay, to get to G double prime, I go left, is it 5? 2, 3, 4, 5, up 2. And to get to my E double prime, 4 up 3. Okay, so all I want to do to get my new points, my triple prime, is change these signs. So negative 2, 1 should become, good. All right, and G double prime for triple will become positive 5, negative 2, right? And then my E triple prime is going to be, very good. And remember, this is all in relation to point P. So whenever I come over here to graph this, I got 2, -1 in relation to point P, and then 5, -2, and then 4, -3. Okay, so this is my F, this is my G, and this is my E. Okay. Okay. So it's important that when we're doing these first that we do them in the order that's listed, but also to kind of make notes along the way because each one builds off of the other. So if you don't have them written down and it comes to one where you're supposed to be changing the signs or flipping places and you don't have something to reference, it's going to make it harder on you. Okay? All right, we will stop there.